Gentrification, a word most of us hear in a negative connotation. But Christopher Senegal is changing all of that. Stay tuned to hear how he is buying back the block.
Legacy to me is the most important thing that you should always be focused on because, we all have a finite amount of time on this earth. But how you impact people and what they remember you for and how you change their lives can live forever. There's people now that we know of from centuries ago, from previous civilizations, because of the impact and the legacy that they created for themselves and for their community. So my goal is to leave that type of impact and create that type of legacy for myself, for my children, and for the entire community.
All right, I am so excited about this conversation today. Christopher Senegal,
Yes,
doing
ma'am.
big things. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. So first, let's just start off by explaining to the people, what do you do as a real estate developer?
Okay, so when you think about real estate, there's several different layers, from the regular home buyer to an investor that buys a house and flips it like you see on HGTV. Then you got people that do new construction and build houses, but none of that would be possible without the developer. The developer is the one that says, "I see raw land, and I'm going to do something with it." Or I see an abandoned building, and I'm going to repurpose it and bring it back to life. So the developer starts the cycle for anything in real estate, whether it's commercial, residential, industrial. So the developer also is the person that takes the biggest risk usually on the front end because they do something that's usually never been done, and it takes a long time to get to the point to where you can actually get a return on your money.
Yeah, okay. And thinking about that when you're talking about risk, so it takes a lot of risk in the beginning.
It does.
What even gave you the idea of saying, okay, you know what, this is what I want to do? Why did you take this avenue?
So I went to school for engineering. I got out, got the corporate job. After a year, I was like, I've been sold a dream. I hate it, And so I started working on my escape plan at that point, just reading books. Real estate just kept coming up. Everybody has to have a place to live, so it's like recession-proof to a certain extent. And as I got into it, I started doing the typical thing what everybody else was doing, which you see on HGTV, flipping houses, had rental properties. But, it kind of got boring. It's not as sexy as they make it look like it is on TV. It's a lot more challenge, a lot more risk. So I kind of realized that, as an investor, sometimes you actually accelerate gentrification, especially in our communities. And, I was just trying to figure out a solution for it and talked to my peers that looked like me that were in the industry. They didn't have an answer. Talk to all the intellectuals. They just tell you why it's not going to work. Everybody wants to bring up Black Wall Street for some reason. And, for me, it's just like, there's a solution. There's a solution. I mean, the building we're sitting in and the street that it's on was a Black Wall Street in Fifth Ward. There was businesses all up and down the street. When everything was segregated, we had to have all our own businesses. And somebody built all those buildings, right? The doctors, the lawyers, the entrepreneurs, the professors, the employees all lived in the community. Somebody built all those houses. Somebody owned all those houses. Those were developers. So for me, I was like, well, the only way to bring that back and create solutions and show solutions is to actually just do it.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got started.
I love that. And, we hear this word gentrification all the time, but it's typically talked about in a negative connotation versus positive. So tell us why it's important for us as Black people to actually go in and decide to do gentrification in our old neighborhoods.
So the textbook definition or the dictionary definition says gentrification is taking something from a lower class and making it middle class standard. The problem is it's usually not us making the decisions on what middle class is. It's usually somebody from outside the community that sees something that has a lot of potential. They do what they want with it.
Right.
And when they do that, they're specifically in capitalism mode. They're in business maximize profit mode. They're not thinking about how to protect the community. And so the difference is everything has a life cycle. Everything dies and renews, everything. So you can't let a neighborhood just sit dormant and dead.
Yeah.
It used to be, these neighborhoods used to be alive. So you got to bring them back alive. You just have to do it in a way where you don't move like the outside people move. So, if you go by the textbook, gentrification is not necessarily a negative thing. And what I've been focused on is ways of revitalizing the community without displacing a single person. So if I'm doing new construction, I'm doing it on vacant lots.
Okay.
You know, if I'm doing a flip, I'm flipping a vacant house. You know, I'm not going knocking on anybody's door asking them to sell their house.
Which is very different
Right.
from what we've seen. Yes.
Right. Most people are taught to go knock on doors. You know, and or I'm not going to buy an occupied rental property from an investor and tell a tenant they got 30 days to get out
Yeah.
because I got to renovate the house and then
Yeah.
raise the rents. That's the negative side of gentrification.
Right.
So there's a better way to do it. There's a more positive way to do it, especially in communities like this, because there's a big development that's coming to the community already. So that's the negative side of gentrification.
Yeah.
So we either sit back and we watch it, or we try to protest and get the city government to stop it, or we figure out how to control everything around it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And thinking about wanting to control everything around it, which I feel like that's the way that you're taking your stance on it, right? So why Fifth Ward? Why start here?
So anybody's familiar with Houston will know what City Center is. So City Center is the big mixed-use development in the energy corridor, right at I-10 and the Beltway. The same developers that built that are building one twice the size of that one in Fifth Ward on Buffalo Bayou off Clinton Drive, the south end. They used to call it the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's an opportunity for us to actually take advantage of the time we had ahead of the project actually coming online. We always miss the curve. We usually call the neighborhood the hood, and you know we don't go back to it. And,
Right.
And then by
That
the time we do come back, everything's so expensive we can't afford it, and then we complain about it. Well, there was a whole process in between there. Somebody bought that first house when there was still a lot of crime in the community and moved in. Some other people did it while we calling it the hood. They're walking their dogs, and eventually it turns, and we can no longer afford it.
Yeah.
So we gotta realize that we have to participate in that process to be able to win.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that. And I also know with the education that you have for yourself and what you've been doing within the community, you're really big about being able to pay it forward and tell other people to bring them in as well, right?
Yeah.
So tell a little bit more about that process.
Well, I mean, it's more of an approach, right? If you think about Black people and you think about the history of us since the abolition of slavery, there's been Black millionaires.
Right.
We got Madam C.J. Walker. Everybody knows about her 1800s. You know, but independent Black wealth has not solved the problems that we have in our community. Right. We were building up. I say sometimes desegregation kind of set us back because, like I said, we had our own businesses and our own communities.
Wanting to stay together.
Staying together. I mean, imagine what's the unemployment rate in the Black community when everybody owns the businesses are Black.
Right.
You know, so when we get out of that mindset and we focus on forcing ourselves to be accepted in other communities, and then we become employees, and we're at their mercy, and we aren't still holding our own when it comes to our community, then we're in a position where, you know, whatever decision they make controls us.
Yeah.
So the only way for us to get back to where we were and to catch up and exceed where we were is for us to share the information. Those that get it, and teach everybody else how to do it so that we have complete communities again. And it's not really about separation, you know, it's not really about, I always talk about, while the notion of all Black everything is cool, when you think about the wealthiest Black people in civilization's history, like Mansa Musa in Africa, they say he's top 10 right up there with Bill Gates if you look at wealth. It wasn't because it was all African everything. It's because he did business with every other continent.
With every other continent.
Right. So the goal is to do business with other people and bring those dollars into your community and let them circulate in the community. It's not keep everybody out and then try to be self-sustaining. Because we got examples of that too. Look at countries like Cuba. Look at Haiti. You know, while what they did was great, you know, by fighting off the slaves. I mean, the slave owners.
The slave owners, yeah.
Slave owners. But then they held themselves in isolation and they didn't participate in the global economy. That's why they're such a poor country. You know, so we have to realize that we got to take advantage of what we have here, rebuild our own communities, and do like the other minority communities do. I mean, you go to Chinatown in Houston, all the signs are in Chinese, but it's not all Chinese everything.
Right.
You walk in the store, they're happy to have you there. They're happy to have you in the restaurant, but all the employees look like them. You know, they bank at their own banks. You know, we could do the same thing, and
Right.
it doesn't have to be offensive to anybody else. It just needs to be collective within our community.
Yeah, I love that. It doesn't have to be offensive with everybody else. It just needs to be collective within our community.
Right.
That part needs to be on a t-shirt. Yes. I love that. I love that. I love that. So, Chris, let's think about all of these great things that you've done, right, within real estate development. What would you say has been your proudest moment thus far?
I would say this project, the one we're in, is a portfolio of 18 residential properties where some of the tenants have been here for 20 years. Actually, one lady's been here 30 years. And
So she's seen it all.
oh yeah, she's seen it all.
Wow.
And she grew up in Fifth Ward too, so she's always lived in the community. And you know, being able to catch this property when the sellers were listing it before it got into the hands of somebody outside the community. I know who the backup offer was on the property, and that investor was planning to buy it, move everybody out, and turn this into like a little Airbnb community. So displace everybody.
Wow.
And so for me to be able to talk to the sellers, have them on board with what my plan was to do a crowdfund, which is something that a lot of people had talked about but had never really been done and implemented, executed to completion. So the opportunity to get the property under contract, have the sellers work with me, also was an older black couple, and be able to let people invest as little as $250 and say they own a piece of this. So I had about 1,521 investors. We raised $1,070,000 in 7 months, and used that money, some of it for the down payment on the property, some of it to do the renovations on the property. And now everybody that invested owns a piece of this.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So we don't have to wait for Oprah. We ain't got to wait for Jay-Z.
Come on.
You know, we can pool our money, $250. $250 up to $10,000. That's the range.
Yeah.
Of people that invested.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So are you doing any other properties like that?
I'm looking for other opportunities to do it. The thing about when you do a crowdfund is you have to have something that already has some revenue, some cash flow, because you have to pay out to investors. It's not
Right.
charity. It's not a donation.
Right.
People want their money back, and they want it back with interest. You know, so you got to find the right project. So I've been looking for the right project to do the next one. I do have a bigger project I'm working on right on the other side of the freeway. I purchased Pleasant Grove Church in December. So we're going to do a large mixed-use development there.
Okay.
It's going to be like a 275-unit apartment complex, a coffee shop, and a small business incubator.
Love it. Love it. And what's the projected end date for that? Like, when is that going to be completed?
We think we're going to start construction probably November, December this year.
December this year?
Yeah,
Okay.
and there's 2 years to complete the
Right.
construction, and then we go into lease up. So it's about a 3-year project.
Got you. That's still phenomenal. That's phenomenal. So now we heard about like one of the things that you're most proud of, which we're sitting in it, which is so great. What has been your biggest lesson learned doing this business?
I think the biggest lesson learned is to not put so much energy into trying to convince people that something can happen. You should put that energy into actually trying to get it done, and not being afraid of no. Like some people take rejection as I don't have a good idea, but usually
They're not
it's
rejecting you.
right. They're just rejecting. Yeah,
Yeah.
And it's either the timing isn't right, or they just don't understand. They don't see it the way you see it. That you shouldn't hold that against them.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like, I feel like so many times, like you said, trying to get other people to buy into your idea, it wasn't given to them. It's given to you for a reason.
Right.
So why don't you take all of your efforts and just go forth with it, no matter what it takes, all risks, right?
Yep.
Because it takes a lot of risk to
Yep.
do what you're doing today.
Yeah, it does take a lot
Right?
of risk. Yeah, you got to have a high risk tolerance for this. Yeah.
Absolutely. I
yeah.
completely agree with that.
Yeah, and I would say one other thing that's important is whatever you're trying to do, it's cool to surround yourself with people that have the same level of ambition and want to reach the same goal. But if y'all collectively don't have anybody on the team that's actually done what you're trying to do,
Yeah.
you're going to be spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be the little things that you need to tweak that you don't know. It's going to be the failures that somebody else has already had that's been successful in it, that they can give you the blueprint quickly. And I think part of that is pride sometimes. Part of that is the education system, because the education
Yeah.
system tells us you got to go figure it out.
Completely different.
Yeah, you got to figure it out on your own. You can't cheat. You can't copy. You know, you got to study and you got to pass the test on your own. And in reality, that's the long, hard way to get anything done. So.
And you know, honestly, I have always been a big advocate of surrounding yourself around people that you desire to be like the path that you're going. It's great to have those that are on the same path as you right now,
Right.
but if they are all, you know, in the same level and you're trying to get to become a billionaire, how you gonna get there if you're not around billionaires?
That's true. That's very true.
Like, let's really think about that, you know? And I say that to, like, even within my teen girls and talking to them all the time, like, let's not just look at where you are. Where do you want to go? Okay, so now how can you get a mentor in that area? Because people are always willing to give their knowledge. Like, you're giving knowledge, you know, but are you willing to ask the questions?
Right. That's it.
That's the big thing. Are you willing to ask the questions? Because a lot of us are so afraid to just ask questions. I don't even understand that.
You know, sometimes it's afraid to ask questions, and sometimes you'll get in front of somebody that can really give you that boost that you need, but instead you try to impress that person. So when you go to them, you act like you got it all together. Instead of saying, hey, I really need help with this, you miss an opportunity that could have solved the problem that you really have.
Come on.
Because you're trying to, you know, be on their level.
Come on.
Yeah,
You better say it. That is so true.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Instead of impressing, how about you truly go and be humble and say, listen, I actually have some questions for you.
Right. And try to bring some value to them in some type of way.
Yeah.
You know, to make it a win-win, so it's not just like one-sided. But yeah, that's a much better approach than trying to act like you got it all together.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I believe like networking is your net worth. Like that's how you're able to continue to grow and be better and become better.
Yep.
You know, but you have to be willing to listen to what the other people have to share, but also what are you bringing to them?
Right.
Because nobody wants to just give information and you're not even returning in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Right.
How does that even help the situation?
Yep. I agree. 100%.
Yes, this was so good. Okay, so everyone has their why, right? Their why they started this in the first place. And I know you talked about how, you know, you were in the engineering field. You realized that this was not my calling. I thought this was, but no.
Right.
And you tried something different, but what's the why? Why this?
I think the why for me is just watching the community always moving in a position of trying to convince, asking, begging, instead of taking responsibility for our own situation right now. Like Will Smith, when he first got on Instagram, he had that quote that went viral. He's like, it's not your fault what happened to you, but it's damn sure your responsibility to figure out how to get out of it. So if you spend all of your time just blaming the person that caused it and waiting for them to change their mind and waiting for them to give you a hand up, you ain't never gonna get nowhere.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, I see a lot of that in our community, and for me, it was just like, man, I don't want to do that. I don't want to participate in that process. I just want to set a blueprint and show people, hey, we can really do these things.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's not about personal wealth. It's really about collective group economics and kind of changing the path, the trajectory of us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then let's leave off with this. There's someone that's watching you right now, and they're saying, man, he's done a great job, but I don't even know where to get started. What would you tell them? What's the first step they need to do to get into becoming a real estate developer?
I would say read and network. If you want to get started, I actually have a platform called Creating Wealth Through Real Estate that you can find me. Just you Google my name, it'll come up, chrissenegal.com, or find me on Instagram or something. The link is in my bio. But it literally is a program that takes you from square one and kind of shows you all the different areas of real estate that you can get into. Being a developer really isn't for everybody. It's a slow process. It's a lot of risk involved in it. But there's several other ways you can participate in real estate and make just as much money.
Yeah.
So it's really about
finding which avenue is best for you, right?
Exactly. And so that's what my program does. It kind of helps people understand. There's real estate agents that just help people buy houses that are millionaires, you know, that own their own brokerages. There's people that have appraisal companies, not just an individual appraiser, but build up a team and have people working under you, and they're millionaires.
Yeah.
You know, so it's people that have lawn care services that build their business up to get contracts with apartment complexes or the city. They can be millionaires. So it's anything related to real estate. There's a lot of ways that you can really scale and have a great financial shift in your life and your family's life.
Yes. I completely love that. Thank you so much, Chris, for giving us all the business.
No problem.
I truly appreciate that. So let's say once more your website so people know how they can actually get in touch with you, find out more about what you're doing, and we'll be sure to share the links below.
Okay, yeah. So if you the easiest way, just go to Google and type in Chris Senegal. It's going to pull it up. It'll pull up my YouTube, it'll pull up my Instagram, and it'll pull up my website as well. And then you can go to either one of those sources. I have all the links on everything, so everything has continuity, so you can get to the learning portal through there.
Awesome sauce.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate you.
No problem.
Listen, he's sharing education. Don't be waiting. It's time to start going in right now, today. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Chris.
I appreciate the invite.
Yeah,
Hey.
that's good. Great info.